All right, welcome to Putnam County. I'm Jen Colamonico. I'm the chair of the Putnam County Dems. Thank you. Thank you. And we are co-sponsoring this event with our friends in Dutchess, and I'd like to acknowledge Michael Dupree, the chair of Dutchess County Dems. So on behalf of all of our, both of our counties, we welcome you, all of you in the room and all of you online. This is such an important discussion, and we really want to thank all of our candidates for making it a priority to be here. This event is being recorded, and the recording will be made publicly available. So we have limited Wi-Fi bandwidth because we want to get really good quality recording. So we're not giving out the Wi-Fi password. And you're welcome to take photos, but if we could ask you not to live stream or anything, and share the video afterwards, share photos afterwards, but want to make sure that we don't disrupt the Wi-Fi while we're recording. This is a forum, not a debate. So we won't be having back and forth. There'll be perhaps other events for that, but we hope to get through as many questions as possible. We obviously have 7 candidates, so it's going to be tight. We do have a timekeeper, my friend Kathy Valletta right here in the front. We'll have her signs. So yellow and red, so try to keep to the minute rules if you can. We will be collecting questions as we go. You all have index cards. We may not, I can guarantee we won't get through every question, but we are going to collect those questions either way, and we'll provide them all to the candidates, and we'll use them because we want to know what's important, what's on everybody's mind, so that the candidates get that feedback, and we can continue to have these discussions. Let me actually, before I introduce our moderator, if you could, I know you all just sat down, but if you could stand up and we could pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you for that. I would like to introduce our moderator, Vic Herlinsky. Vic is a litigator from the state of New Jersey who Sedgwood is his home on weekends, and so we are really thrilled to have him here today. Vic has a long history of involvement in Democratic politics in New Jersey and is a longtime confidant to Senator Cory Booker, among others, I'm sure, advising in his Senate and presidential races. He was recently appointed by Governor Phil Murphy to serve on the Gateway Development Commission. And as I said, he's a member of the Sedgwood Club, so we're very happy to have him here, and we appreciate Sedgwood for allowing us to be here today. So with that, I will turn it over to Vic, and we'll catch you at the end. Thank you.
I'm so glad. I spend my weeks in Newark, New Jersey, where I would say is a bastion of democracy and Democrats. And then I come on weekends to Putnam County, which I would say is a bastion of democracy and Democrats. So we're here tonight with 7 brave souls that are taking on not just a Congressman Lawler, but they're also taking on what we see in America today. And we're going to hear a diversity of opinion, and we're going to keep this all in the family, so to speak. Often in meetings like this where you have a large group of candidates, I just wanted them to remind you the ethos of what we come out of, and that is, as Democrats, there was one of the great Democrats of the last century was asked once to identify his political party, and that's Will Rogers, the famous humorist. And they said, "To what political party do you belong?" And he very stoutly said, "I do not belong to an organized political organization. I'm a Democrat." So we're here today. We have Kathy, who's an attorney from Carmel, who's going to be very clear. We want everybody to have their chance to answer as many questions as they can, so if you can please limit your answers to the 2 minutes that we have. What we're going to do is start in alphabetical order at the other end of the table for the first question, and then we'll go in reverse alphabetical order that time going forward. For you in the middle, you get to be in the middle. So what I'd like the first candidate to do is to introduce yourself to our voters and share what experience in your life best prepares for you to be a member of Congress.
Hello, everybody from Putnam. I am Peter Chatzky. For the last 40 years or so, I've been running a software company that I created. As you can imagine, software over the last 40 years requires a lot of constant change. Our clients are some of the biggest banks in the world, so I've gone toe-to-toe with people where I've been the David to their Goliath. I've been active in local politics for over 20 years. I've served 10 years as both mayor and deputy mayor of Briarcliff Manor. I've also, my third job, I am the father of 4 children, 2 of whom have had severe health issues that have required me to navigate our terrific country health system, so I've battled that battle as well. I took care of my ailing mom the last 5 years of her life. She died a year ago at age 94, so I'm also familiar with all the issues related to elder care as well. I've basically spent my entire adult life taking care of people. That includes my employees and their families, all my constituents, and of course my own family. I'm a caregiver, I look out for other people, and that's what I plan to do when elected to Congress. I'll do the same for New York 17. You can clap.
Hi there, I'm Cait Conley, and my story begins about 20 miles north of here. I was born in Vassar Brother Hospital in Dutchess County, to a blue-collar family that goes back 4 generations here in the Hudson Valley. From my great-grandfather and grandfather who worked in the brickyards of Montrose, to my mom, the postal worker, to my dad, the construction worker. And it is these values that the Hudson Valley has instilled in me, is the reason why when the terror attacks of 9/11 happened that ravaged this country, I raised my hand to serve. And I went off to West Point, graduated at the top of my class, and spent the next 16 years serving this country, fighting for this country that I love so much. I did 6 trips overseas, fighting in places like Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, and Yemen, again, because I love this country and believe that every American family deserves to be safe and secure. My last 2 years in uniform, I served as the Director of Counterterrorism at the White House under the Biden administration, and then as a senior executive working on securing our nation's critical infrastructure. My life story is one of public service and protecting and fighting for this country that I love. And that is why I'm doing this now, out of love. Love for this country and the firm belief in my heart that our best days are still ahead of us. But not if we stay on the path we're on. We need to change, we need to do better because America deserves better. And that starts with changing Mike Lawler, changing our leadership at the federal level. Under his leadership, we've led America to the point where the first time in modern American history, the prospects of young Americans are worse than that of their parents, and that is unacceptable. Him staying in this seat is unacceptable. That's why I'm doing this. Mike Lawler has beat seasoned Democrats to hold this seat, but he has never beat someone like me. He's never faced someone like me. So I'm doing this because I love this country and I believe we need a better future. And that's only going to happen if we have leaders of character who are willing to do the work and get it done. So this is about bringing back the American dream. This is about making the Hudson Valley affordable. This is about taking back our country and making the Hudson Valley a place where all of us thrive. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much to our wonderful Putnam Democratic Chair, Jen Colamonico, to our moderator, and to all of you for being here with us tonight. I'm Beth Davidson. I'm a working mom with 2 kids in public school. I'm a 2-time cancer survivor, and I'm a Rockland County legislator who wakes up every morning ready to fight for the community I've called home for 20 years. And we need a fighter here in New York 17 because we are in the fight of our lives. Donald Trump 2.0 is even worse than the first time around. He's threatening to deport American citizens, conducting foreign policy by tweet, torching food and contraceptives rather than share them with people in need. And he and Mike Lawler just passed the cruelest, most dangerous bill of our lifetimes, one that will devastate schools, businesses, veterans, hospitals, and families like yours and mine here in the Hudson Valley. Of course, Mike Lawler had big dreams of running for governor, but Donald Trump told him he had to stay put. And while he continues to masquerade as a moderate, everyone in this room knows that he is the most radical, right-wing, out-of-step, out of touch member of Congress this district has ever had. And mark my words, will ever have again. After lying to our faces for months, Mike Lawler did vote to slash Medicaid and food assistance. He voted to defund NPR, PBS, and Planned Parenthood. He caved to Donald Trump and kept the SALT cap right in place. And after weeks of accusing paid instigators of ruining his town halls, it was revealed that the only paid agitator was a Mike Lawler staffer, your county legislator, Aaron Crowley, who created an alias to spy on his constituents by infiltrating a signal group. Despite his extreme record, Mike Lawler has won this district twice in a big way by winning Rockland County, a community I've served as a school board member and now as a county legislator for almost a decade. I've proven I can not only win big in Rockland County, helping to deliver a Democratic supermajority on the county legislature while boosting voter turnout by 20% in an off-year election, all in Mike Lawler's backyard. I've also proven I can deliver results in divided government. I've cut taxes, fully funded law enforcement, and preserved hundreds of acres of open space, all under a Republican county executive. I've earned a reputation as a roll-up-my-sleeves leader who gets it done for my constituents. Now let's be clear, this seat is really hard to win. It takes real roots in our community. It takes a real coalition, and it takes a fighter who knows how to beat Republicans in tough districts. We don't flip this seat unless we win Rockland and raise our numbers in Putnam, Dutchess, and Westchester, and our campaign is already well on its way. I've spent the last 2 decades fighting for this community, and I'm ready to take that fight to Washington. Thank you. Sorry, I wasn't looking.
Good evening, Putnam and Dutchess. Thank you all so much for being here and for having us here to speak to you. My name is Effie Phillips-Staley, and I'm running for Congress so I can be in Washington to fight for Hudson Valley working families and to get our nation back on track as a beacon of prosperity, compassion, and progress. And yes, I am a proudly progressive Democrat. The challenges we face, skyrocketing costs, a planet on fire, and a democracy under siege, require courageous solutions. If we're going to win the battles ahead, we need people in Congress with an unwavering moral compass and the courage to put people first. That's who I am, and that's who I've always been. That's why I'm running. I'm not a career politician, but I am a Tarrytown Village trustee who's gone toe-to-toe with developers and NIMBYs to fight for affordable housing, and I work hard to make sure we have a climate resilient infrastructure that is so important right now. Also critical is I'm fighting for good cause eviction because housing is not a luxury, it is a right. So I know exactly what it takes to build coalitions and pass legislation. And that ability doesn't come from my work on the dais. It comes from 30 years of experience in the nonprofit sector where I fight for equity and social justice, both as a nonprofit worker and also as an executive. This is what I will bring to Washington. So I live in Tarrytown, where my husband and I raised our 2 children. My mom is an immigrant from El Salvador, and she poured her heart into teaching in public schools. My dad is a blue-collar war veteran who worked long hours at the U.S. Mint. Public education, veterans benefits, and affordable housing. These weren't just programs for my family. They were lifelines that enabled us to enter into the middle class. We know they're being cut right now. It is personal. Lawler and Trump are behind this, and that is why I am running to get this nation back on track and take care of working families again. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jessica Reinmann. I live in Chappaqua with my 2 children and my husband, my 2 dogs, and my 1 cat. I grew up in Long Island. I am the daughter of 2 union school teachers. I went to SUNY Binghamton, and then I went to Cardozo Law School. When I graduated law school, I practiced real estate law, and then I went into law firm management at 2 top 50 law firms. In 2014, I decided to take a break from law firms, and I said I will stay home and see my daughter go through middle school and find a job closer to home. In November of that year, I was driving in Mount Kisco, which is a very diverse neighborhood that welcomes immigrants, and I saw families walking to the bus stop, and none of the children or parents had coats. And I pulled my car over and I said, "Do you need coats?" And they said yes. And I thought to myself, this is something I can do. This is a problem I can solve. And I told them to meet me there the next day. And the next day, I came back and I got every single one of them coats. And not only did they get coats, but they got to choose their coats. And watching them, looking at their faces as the children got to choose what coat they got to wear, it changed my life. That was the day that 914 Cares was born. 914 Cares is a nonprofit that I created that helps families in Westchester with the basic essentials of life: clothing, diapers, period products, hygiene products, baby essentials, and everything else that they need to survive and thrive. I have worked in every single community in Westchester County to make sure that the families living there are able to afford life and able to provide for their families. I'm running for Congress because I want to do that for all of New York 17. I want to be your problem solver in Congress. I want to take your problems, make them my problems, and fix them. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mike Sachs, and the prompt was describe what experience in your life that has prepared you to serve as a member of Congress. So I'm a dad of 2 boys, a lawyer, a journalist, a former political and legal reporter, and a Supreme Court watchdog by trade. Now, have you guys seen the news lately? Right? Name anything, and I've been there, covering it, exposing it, and fighting it. Trump's tax cuts and tariff policy. Well, when he first did the tax cuts in 2017, I was the first reporter to put a microphone in front of his face and call him out on his lies right there in front of him. How about Texas's gerrymanders? That's distorting our democracy. Well, I covered the Supreme Court's ruling that gave a green light to that cheating. And it's my job, really, to fight this Supreme Court's anti-democratic agenda. Even Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. I was there at their arraignments. I was there when Epstein's victims told in open court the impact that his actions had on them, and I was there for Maxwell's guilty verdict. And from Citizens United to January 6th, I had a front row seat, sometimes quite literally, to the moment we find ourselves in right now. And I have a good idea of how to get out of it. So that will be the work of the 120th Congress, to expose and to fight Trump's criminality and corruption, and to show the American public what we can be when we are all in it together. So I come at this race with this unique perspective. For too long, our politics have been oriented towards the billionaires, towards the special interests, towards the elites, and away from we the people. Right now, people are standing back up. You guys are showing up at rallies, at events. This campaign is a movement to meet that moment. It's not just about beating Lawler, though beat him we must. It's also about fundamentally reorienting our politics back to the people and restoring the House of Representatives as the people's house. Thank you.
Well, hello, everyone. Thank you, Putnam. Thank you, Duchess. Thank you all for coming tonight, and thank you to my fellow candidates for being here. These kinds of events are very important because we are going to be picking the next congressperson coming from this district. My name is John Sullivan, and I jumped into this race after serving nearly 17 years in the FBI. I resigned my position in the beginning of April because I refused to be an accomplice to Donald Trump, Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, Mike Lawler's attack on our country. I worked on the January 6th investigation. I supervised teams who went after child predators, who looked at cases involving cartels and drug smuggling, fentanyl smuggling. I have been in the fight to protect this country ever since I took that oath almost 17 years ago. The same one, by the way, that Donald Trump took and then pardoned all those January 6ers. I am the product of parents who were proud union members, first person in my family to go to college and get a 4-year degree, recently paid off the student loans not that long ago. But my most important experience and job that I've had is being a dad. I have a 6-year-old son, and I know that he's going to ask me one day, what did you do when it came down to this? And I can say to him, I stood up to the bullies who are trying to make us less safe. They're going after our seniors. They're going after our families. They're not going after the guns. They're going after everything that makes this country great because they want to go back to some time before where we are now, some time where others are ostracized and where Democrats don't have a voice. And I say absolutely not. I am in this race to continue the mission and to continue the service to unite and protect this country. I will go to Washington taking the experience that I have in the FBI because when we get there, our first job is going to be oversight. I know something about running investigations, gathering information, and identifying intelligence. And I will go there on day one, won't need orientation, roll up my sleeves, and get to work. So thank you for coming tonight. I'm really looking forward to the questions and the discussion.
So we're going to reverse the order, and we're going to start with John and work our way down the line for the next discussion. I think one of the big questions coming out of the last election was what was the Democratic message? And there's a lot of questions for that. We're going to ask you in an individual level, what do you believe is the strongest message for Democrats heading into the 2026 cycle? John?
Thank you. It's a great question. I get asked it a lot, actually. I think it's important that the Democrats, I know I'm not running just against Mike Lawler and Donald Trump. We have to run for something. We have to be giving hope and aspiration and opportunity to folks. And that's why my campaign is centered around 3 key ideas that have many sub-bullets that we could talk about in more detail when we have more time, and I'd like to do that after the event if you want to stick around. But I'm focused on 3 things: affordability, safety, and accountability. And just hitting those a little bit quickly, affordability is everything from the cost of goods to healthcare. As a cancer survivor, I understand how important healthcare is and how they're doing everything possible now to rip healthcare away from the most vulnerable in the big ugly bill. Safety is key. I mentioned guns. The gun safety is so important, especially as a parent, and what we're seeing that just happened in the city not that long ago. And accountability is going to Congress and not leaving as a millionaire if you didn't walk in as one. And so I think the Democratic Party's message needs to be digestible. It needs to be just a few things, and they need to talk about how we're going to make people's lives better, more prosperous, and give them the economic opportunity to thrive. Because what we're seeing right now is a complete and utter destruction of our economy between tariffs, the big ugly bill, and every other thing in between. And now we need to be running on what we're for. We need to call out Trump. We need to call out Ryan Lawler. But we need to do everything possible to give folks a message, because when the day comes down to vote, they're either going to vote for something or against something. They're not going to necessarily vote against Mike Lawler if we don't give them a better message, because they at least know what he stands for, and it's terrible, and we need to counter that. Thank you.
Yeah, we need to go down and build a new house. We'll be left with wreckage. We need to build back from the ruins of what Trump and Lawler will have left us. But the fact is, this is a 2-prong answer. First, about this district, Mike Lawler is a liar. That's a quick and easy way to go, and he's on tape all the time. Just last week on CNN, he said job growth is up, GDP is up, consumer price index is down. Except that job growth is down. We saw what happened with the BLS commissioner when she dared report the facts. GDP is shrinking by $120 billion per year under Trump's tariffs as projected. And the consumer price index is going back up. So Lawler is telling us that up is down and down is up in Trump's Orwellian America. And we also need to remember that they won last year by promising to bring prices down. But every single thing they have done since getting back in office has jacked prices up to steal from us and make their billionaire best friends richer. This gets back to now beyond this district and nationally. about those billionaires. Do you remember that ad that Trump put out towards the end of last election that was scapegoating people who never did anything to hurt anybody and said Harris is for they and them and Trump is for you? Do you remember that? Now, do you remember at Trump's inauguration that billionaires row on the dais of Musk, of Bezos, of Zuckerberg? Think about this image and think about these words. Trump is for they and them. We are for you. We can build that new house. We can present that positive agenda that John was just talking about. That is essential. But in this coming election, people are going to be getting hurt. The economy is going to get tanked. And they're going to be distorting our democracy to preserve their power because hurting people and tanking the economy is unpopular. We need to say Mike Lawler is a liar and Trump is for they and them, those billionaires, and we are for you.
So I do think that we have two issues. We have a national issue and a New York 17 issue. But since we're here talking about New York 17, I want to talk about what I think the message needs to be for the Democrats in New York 17. And the message needs to be, and who the message needs to be directed to, which is working families. The Democratic Party, the party of the people, have lost our people. Our people don't trust us anymore. Our people don't vote for us anymore. Working families, union members, they don't vote for us anymore. There is an affordability crisis in our country, and we have not come up with a solution. We need to put forth to our voters people who have come up with solutions, people who have been in their communities, who understand their needs, who understand what they're going through, who have talked to them, who have understood them, and who have made their lives better. We are literally in the worst affordability crisis in a generation, and we have a president and a congressman who are cutting all of the necessary securities that this country has promised us for over 90 years. And still, they're voting for him. Why? Why? What can we do to bring them back? We can give them somebody who's different, somebody who has been in their communities, somebody who has worked with them, somebody who during the COVID crisis didn't just sit at home and stare at the television, somebody who created a diaper bank and a period poverty project, and somebody who created a hygiene bank to make sure that families in the Hudson Valley were taken care of during the worst crisis of our lifetime, COVID-19. We need to bring working families and union members back, and the only way we can do that is with somebody who understands the needs that they face, the needs of their families.
I wanted to start this by saying we should just repeal the big ugly bill, that is the message that we need to get out right away. But I'll pick up with where I left off in my intro. I came from a working class family that really benefited from a government that was there to take care of us. Veterans benefits in particular, again, affordable housing, which my family benefited from, and fantastic public schools. That enabled us to rise to the middle class. It enabled me to be able to go to a great public university that I was able to afford to pay for because the tuition was only $2,400 a year. It still took me time to pay it off. But all of these lifelines are being cut by Lawler and Trump. We see it, it's rampant, and it is because it is a government that is not for the people. It is not a government that puts people first. So my big argument here is that we absolutely must return to being a government that puts people first. Democrats have failed at that for a while. Sadly, I mean, to a degree, that's why we're in the position we're in now. We cannot be Republican light when we run for this office. We cannot be cautious, we cannot be corporate friendly, nor can we be out of touch, because again, if I were growing up today in this system, Democrat and Republican, it would have failed my family entirely. So I have put forward what I'm calling the Suburban Progress Agenda, and it focuses on some key tent poles, which I'll go through in relation to Trump. While Trump and Lawler decided that 16 million lives were expendable when they gutted Medicaid, I'll be offering a compassionate path forward, Medicare as a public option. When they turn their backs on asylum seekers, we'll have a haven for those fleeing persecution, and I will be quick. And we'll push for cash assistance for home buyers, universal child care, pre-K for every kid, and more affordable housing right here in the Hudson Valley. We have to help people return to having affordable lives. Thank you.
First of all, I want to also acknowledge the chair of the Dutchess Democratic Party, Michael Dupree. Thank you for your leadership, not just tonight, but all year round in Dutchess County. It's great to see you. As someone who, so my parents, a public school teacher, union card carrying, and a US Navy veteran, taught me that 95% of life is showing up and listening and doing the right thing. And the National Democratic Party could take a page from my parents, and I'm sure many of your parents, because often, as we know as local candidates, they don't show up until the last few months of an election. And when they did last year, I can tell you from someone who knocked thousands of doors for all of our candidates, they got the message totally wrong. They talked past what voters were really caring about, waking up and going to sleep thinking about, which was that the American dream has a price tag that's simply too high and no guarantees. And as we're seeing in the Hudson Valley, too many families are taking their balls and leaving. And so as someone who knows what it's like to juggle the costs of childcare and housing and healthcare and groceries and utilities, I've made affordability my top priority, not just in this campaign from day one, but previous campaigns as well. That's why there have been Trump-Davidson voters since 2017 when I first ran for office, because people in my community trusted that I would listen and show up and roll up my sleeves and get the job done. I've always been that kind of leader, and that's the kind of leader I'll be in Congress. Meanwhile, Mike Lawler, of course, has been selling out Hudson Valley families left and right, backing the tariffs that are crushing our small businesses, cutting Medicaid, cutting Planned Parenthood. But make no mistake, he is the spin doctor for the ages, and he is going to make it sound like he is the hero of the hour, and it will be our job to call him out, to hold him accountable for his record, for his fealty to Donald Trump, and his record that is hurting Hudson Valley families. Thank you.
I think we have to realize that for so many Americans, the American dream isn't real anymore, and that we have allowed unaffordability to dominate the kitchen table issues, where people are more worried about keeping a roof over their heads and food on their table and giving their kids a future at a trade-off that is medicine over groceries, right? We're talking about issues where working class American families, like so many in this room, like my family, couldn't have the opportunities today like we did then. I'm a product of the American dream. Neither of my parents graduated from college. I got to go to West Point and Harvard and MIT because this is America, and the American dream was real for me. But that is so far out of reach for so many American families, and I think the Democratic Party didn't just forget that last year. We've been forgetting that for over a decade. That's why we've been losing working class Americans across this country and right here in CD 17. Kamala Harris won this district by less than 1 point. That's because people here in the Hudson Valley in all 4 counties are struggling more than they have in decades. And that is fundamentally wrong. They deserve better. We owe them better. And that is a failure of government, because that is the pact we have with the people to deliver on these core things. So what is this about? This is about making America work for working Americans again. This is about making sure people do have enough means to afford housing by building more affordable housing, by ensuring that once they buy a house, they can afford to live in it, by keeping utility prices low. This is about making sure that their kids really can have more opportunity than they did, by making sure our educational system stopped failing our kids, and that they're preparing them for a future that is going to be hard and dynamic. Folks, AI displacement to the workforce is already happening. The unemployment rate of recent college graduates is already exceeding the national average. We have to give our kids that better future, and we have been failing, and we need to accept that. It's not just about communicating, it is about delivering. And we need to do better.
In terms of the message I would deliver to all voters, it's a little different than what you've heard here. This is not a race about a platform. Every one of these candidates would do a better job than Mike Lawler. I would vote for any one of these people above Mike Lawler. This is not a campaign based on platform. We all largely agree on every single one of these issues. There's not daylight. Maybe subtle daylight on certain issues. We may see slightly differently, but look, end of the day, you're voting for a Democrat. It's going to be a big change. My message to everybody, and I hear how upset, how despondent everybody is, how there's not a single person in this room, this isn't the worst government you've ever had in your lifetime. The message is one of optimism. We have to flip 5 seats, unless this Texas thing goes through, but whatever. It's only 5 seats that changes our entire outlook. Congress regains power. We get rid of all the crap that's going on in government. We get rid of Mike Johnson. We take control again. That's what we need to do. And I think the second message, by the way, is throw out the old Democratic playbook. It's not working. Michelle Obama had great intention when she said, when they go low, we go high. She never expected them to go lower and lower and lower. Throw out the rules, start fighting the way Republicans fight us, and let's take back this country. And we need to elect different kinds of people. People who have experience in both government and business would be ideal. People who create things, because this government's gonna have to be completely rebuilt. We need people who have lived that experience, who have rebuilt things, who know how to get things done, who can work with all types of people. Elect the person you would like to have lunch with. That's the person that you want working for you.
You know, we're about 40 minutes into our presentation, and we're going to keep to the 2-hour time limit on this. But what I would like to do is just caution people that we would like to get to audience questions. I have 2 more of the questions that we've shared with the candidates when they answered but we want to see, some of the questions, interactions with the audience. So nobody's violating 2 minutes, but we're creeping up on it. So if we could just limit to the 2 minutes. The next question is, and I'm drawn from the fact that I lived during the week in one of the most liberal districts in the country. That's in Newark, the city of Newark, New Jersey. We are not in that district here. This is a district where the word liberal is spelled with 4 letters to most people. And it's certainly not a liberal part of you are running district-wide, but for the people here in Putnam County, the ones that haven't, I don't think there's been a gubernatorial candidate that has carried this district, including Governor Cuomo when he had his huge landslides. I would say this is not a liberal district. Catering your answer to, how are you going to make life better for the New York 17 constituents here in Putnam County and nearby Dutchess County that may not share some of the traditional progressive ideals of Democrats? What are you going to do to make life better, specifically for the people here? We'll start with you, Peter.
So, first of all, my experience in government, I served 10 years on a board. It's volunteer, it's nonpartisan. I have worked with ultra-liberal Democrats, I've worked with Republicans, I've worked with conservatives, I've worked with libertarians who question why we even have a government. I've dealt with the whole spectrum. What you need here from your federal government is largely someone who has a lot of experience with infrastructure. Your main problems, like so many communities I've dealt with, and we have the same problems in Briarcliff, relate to water, sewer, roads. These are things where you need federal investment to help. We built in Briarcliff a water treatment facility. Going back 20 years. I was one of many mayors who dealt with this because it took about a decade. It cost us, it was budgeted $25 million. We did it for 19, by the way, but 16 million of those dollars came from the federal government. It's an impossible thing for a small community to do or a county to do without federal dollars. These infrastructure projects relate to everything. They relate to business, they relate to the quality, they relate to the ability to build more and more housing. You need water, you need sewer. It's the kind of thing that when you don't have, you really realize you need. That's one of the things I would do in Congress for districts like Putnam and for Dutchess, is to show you how to get those things done. And you need federal support to do those.
Housing, infrastructure, and education. That is what I believe Putnam and Dutchess County need in order to not only keep the incredible talent that our families bring to bear here, but to attract talent back. My dad grew up in, right down the road in Hopewell Junction, in a place where, if I go today, you see the infrastructure failures where you can't even drive half the roads when it rains. What we are seeing across this district and across Putnam is a failure to invest in the communities that are giving so much. When you look at housing here, in 2025, the median price of a single family home has gone up 10% to over $612,000. That's insane. When you look at the types of taxes you are paying for the lack of return, you've got a county legislator that's hoarding $90 million instead of investing it. When you talk about infrastructure, when we get these once-in-a-century rains that are happening now once a month because of climate change, it's flooding people's homes. You can't drive to work. These are very real costs that are happening to our communities. We're barely surviving, not thriving, and that is wrong. I agree with Peter. Investment in infrastructure is the responsibility of government. The last 2 years, I served at the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. I traveled this country working with state and local government officials, and I saw where other places are succeeding. And I will tell you, we are not in the Hudson Valley. We are missing it, and that's not okay. We need to invest in our infrastructure to make sure that after people buy their homes, they can afford to live in them. If you're getting an energy bill that makes you bankrupt and you have to trade turning the lights on for putting groceries in the fridge, that's wrong. That is not okay. And we're already hearing about wanting to jack up rates for gas and electricity when prices are already high enough. This is not okay. And I will tell you, we're not investing in the educational future for this generation that we need. Why don't we have a community college in Putnam or a BOCES extension? These are basic things to help the next generation thrive and stay. That's what I'm focused on.
Well, as we know, New York 17 is not a one-size-fits-all district. We've got very diverse communities and constituencies. But I've been to many meet and greets up here in Putnam and recognize many of you. And if there's one issue I hear about consistently, it's clean water. And as chair of the Rockland County Water Task Force, that's something I wake up and go to sleep thinking about almost every day. Road salt contamination, I know, is a big issue up here, and it's a serious one. If left untreated, it could make your water undrinkable in 80 years. And set aside the health effects that has, like hypertension, and the effects that it has on biodiversity. Those are both really harmful. Luckily, and I'll also say PFAS, we share that problem in Rockland County as well, unacceptably high levels of PFAS and PFOAs in our drinking water. Luckily, you have state legislators, Pete Harcum and Dana Levenberg, who are champions on the environment, but they need a federal partner to work with. And it's certainly not Mike Lawler, who, as we know, actually voted to claw back funding for a clean water treatment plant in Carmel that was specifically to treat PFAS in the water going to Carmel High School and Putnam Hospital. Also quickly touch on housing, as my two prior fellow candidates have mentioned. It's a huge issue and something that I'm working on as vice chair of the first ever Housing and Economic Development Committee in Rockland, one that I fought to help create, so that we can focus on a diversity of housing, including housing for our seniors, so that they can retire comfortably, affordably, and free up housing stock for first-time home buyers. And then I'll quickly touch on an issue that I know is big in Dutchess, which is your mobile health units. As with these Medicaid cuts looming, I really fear that our entire healthcare system is going to become overwhelmed, and then that's really going to have a disproportionate impact on your mobile health units, which are essential to both mental and physical health care. So I will fight like hell to restore those cut funds so that you're able to serve your community's health needs as they deserve. Thank you.
So I introduced myself as the progressive, but I want to say, which I am, I grew up in a family where my father was a lifelong Republican, a very serious Republican in a very blue-collar family. But the one time my dad did vote for a Democrat, it was for Bill Clinton. And it was because he believed that Clinton would actually take care of us as young people going into college. He thought that that would help with affordability. So I know that a progressive, a Republican, the full spectrum, we all care about the same things, and it's fundamentally, it is affordability, and it is a government that serves us. So in my campaign, we've been thinking hard about what it is that people need locally to thrive, and we've come up with a suburban progressive agenda specifically to address that. And so I'm just going to talk about that really quickly. Building 5 million new homes nationwide with 66,000 here in the Hudson Valley of mixed income units, because teachers, nurses, first responders, and working class people need places they can afford to live, and we have to increase the housing stock for that to happen. As a trustee in the village of Tarrytown, this is key to the work that we do to increase housing locally. In addition, we all know that so many people who grew up here can't afford to live here. So we're proposing $50,000 in cash assistance for first-time home buyers so that people can afford to move back or to stay here and to build generational wealth. It's critical that parents get help with childcare, so we're proposing 12 months of parental leave and universal childcare all the way through kindergarten. Medicare is a public option I mentioned before that covers vision, dental, mental health, reproductive care. It is critical to prevent the kind of healthcare deserts that are coming our way given the cuts. And we have to reform our tax system so that the wealthiest help pay the bill. We've seen the biggest transfer of wealth from working people to the wealthiest people in our nation. It is entirely wrong. We will reverse that with just tax reform. Thank you.
I would ask you, if you hear the bell, like that's probably your last sentence to kind of wrap up on. Next.
New York 17 is very unique. We have suburbs, we have rural areas and farming, and we have one city, which is Peekskill. And the issues here, all over, in all types of communities, are all similar. We're all worried about the affordability crisis. We're all worried about infrastructure. But here in Putnam and Dutchess counties, the crisis that we're going to face because of Trump and Lawler is healthcare. Here in Putnam, you only have one hospital. Medicaid pays for a significant portion of hospital visits. In 2 years from now, January of 2027 to be exact, when Medicaid starts decreasing significantly, I fear for Putnam County that your one hospital will have a very hard time staying open. Also, we really need to focus on the farms in Putnam County and in Dutchess County. Farming is really important here, and I know that there's been significant issues with the agricultural districts in Putnam County and the county legislators, and them not supporting the New York agricultural communities. And so as your federal representative, I will work with state and local officials to make sure that your farming communities are taken care of. I will also work as your federal representative to make sure that farming communities and farmers in general take advantage of all of the opportunities that are out there for them in the federal government, whether it be loans, whether it be help for insurance and management, whether it be conservation grants, whether it be support for new and under-resourced farmers. We need to get our farming communities back. We need to make sure our health care is taken care of in Putnam and Dutchess counties. And I will work with you and with your county and state officials to make sure that happens.
Because going sixth on this question means a lot of the field has already been occupied, but that means I can also keep this short. So there's a good deal of one-party rule here. You guys know it. And it's not serving the people of Putnam and Dutchess County. It's just not. You know, you have a great slate of candidates. I see Jean, I see Lenny, the Bretts, and you know, Brett Yaris behind the camera has a great term for what's going on with the Putnam County Legislature. Tax and hoard. That's what they're doing with that $90 million that we referenced. You know, people's money not going to the services that they're paying for. There's an avenue there to say, we are here to help and to show a better way coming from Congress. Ending Trump's tariffs, that's a way to start for federal policy. Advocating for affordable universal health care, another way to start. And then providing federal funding and support for education, housing, agriculture, and environment. All big issues here that we all touched on. You know, issues where your local governments just don't care. So we have an opportunity as members of Congress to flip the script and show that we do care. It's all about showing up, not treating people of Putnam and Dutchess like afterthoughts in New York 17. And also, not treating your local governments like protection rackets and political machines, which is how they're treated right now under the Lawler machine. That's how it would help. That's how I see our ability in Congress to help above and beyond everything everyone else just said here. But all good answers. I'm proud to share the stage with all of you guys.
You think being sixth is hard?
Penultimate. You are the ultimate.
So I will say I obviously agree with everything that's been said at this table, and I think we need to put into consideration the impact of what these situations will cause for our community here in Putnam and Dutchess with the mobile health systems and the hospital and education where the community falls behind. These are all key areas where this community will need a good ally in Congress who honestly will bring the investments back to the community. But I think what we need to start talking about is not what we'll do when we get into office in January of 2027, but what we can do now as candidates running. And it's supporting the slates that we have here in Putnam and in Dutchess. It's supporting those in Kent and Carmel and Southeast and everywhere else in between. We need to be telling folks about the importance of getting their county and local and state legislators and representatives into power who actually care about the community. Safe water, safe air, clean air, it all matters. But a member of Congress cannot flip the switch and suddenly make everything better. If they could, they would have. We need to be focused on local and state and government elections where we can actually empower individuals to talk with their members, their representatives, and then Washington doesn't come in with some sort of big rubber stamp and say, you're going to put the treatment plant here. They come back and they talk to the local legislators. I will be here all the time as your congressman, sitting down, having those conversations, saying, what do you need? We don't listen enough anymore. We also don't say, what do you need and how can I help you get it? I am not going to be the person, none of us could be the person out of 435 to make it all go away tomorrow, but working closely with our state candidates now, our county candidates now as they're running, making those relationships, getting them into office, and then having those conversations once they're in office is going to be the best way that we can help Dutchess and Putnam, because right now, no one is listening to what we need here. Thank you.
Now, the reality is Michael Lawler has won 2 close elections in a Democratic district. He beat the incumbent chair of the DCCC, Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, and then he beat former Congressman Mondaire Jones in the last election. He has been very present in this district and has communicated relentlessly with his constituents. He never seems to miss an opportunity to tell his constituents how he perceives him helping himself. What will be, and we'll start with John, what will be your communication strategy to do what two former congresspersons each were not able to do?
Be everywhere all at once, just like Mike Lawler seems to be. It's going to take an army for the Democratic nominee to win. It's going to take all of us in this room putting our boots on the ground and arms together to make sure that the message is shared. We need to look at how Mike Lawler messages. He messages on things that are made up and sometimes completely false. The rule book for the Democratic Party needs to be thrown out, and we need to start playing that same game, but we need to be telling the truth. The truth is the antidote to these lies. It comes down to the salt cap. He wants to be praised for raising salt. The cap was a false choice. If the bill went away, there was no salt cap. It is things like that where we need to focus in. We need to use social media and the ability to get in front of folks. I mean, we all know in the last election, kids would be transfixed by the Lawler ads that they would see on YouTube and gaming systems. We need to be looking at those things. We also need to be doing everything possible to get our message out and talking at a level that everyone understands. Sometimes the Democrats get so deep into the weeds that people don't quite understand what we stand for. We need to be talking about those key issues and specific steps that we're going to take to deliver. But I think what's most important is that we had to make sure that when we take on Mike Lawler and all of his lies, we are able to counter his criticisms. He has gone after the Democrats in the past for being soft on crime. Good luck with a guy who's actually caught criminals for a living. Being on that debate stage and calling him out for every single one of those lies in real time, having worked the southern border, having worked on cartels, having worked on fentanyl trafficking, having gone after monsters like those child predators that we've talked about, as well as terrorists overseas, and spending 3 years in Israel as the lead intelligence representative there, bring it on. This is going to be a conversation that is going to end in Mike Lawler realizing he's not going to win re-election.
Lawler pretended to be a moderate up here while voting MAGA down there. But until this year, he was able to get away with it because he was in the opposition. Now he's tied to Trump's mast, showing his ass and going down with the ship. And we can make sure that everyone understands that. As John was saying, his lies, they're loud, they're proud, and they're broadcast. Everything he's saying is cooked up either in a think tank in DC that's made up as lies, or it comes from his own consulting firm that he made his career before jumping into the race. And we can point at that. We can say everything this guy is saying is designed to manipulate you, and he thinks you're stupid. We look into the camera on the debate stage and say, Mike Lawler thinks you're stupid. That's an opening to talk to people on the level about what's actually going on in ways that their ears might have been closed to before, in ways that we might have underestimated them before of what the people are willing to understand. People are smart and they understand what's going on. Now, we talked about, when they go low, we go high. Yeah, no more of that. When they go low, we kick them in the teeth. When they go in the gutter, we stomp on their faces. Really, truly. We aren't going to win this race saying the same old things with the same kinds of people. I spent my career in the media. I've interviewed these people. I've held my mic in front of their face and heard their lies and called them out as lies from Trump on down. So if Lawler thinks he can keep doing what he's doing after we've all seen it, and he's on tape, we can just say, you liar. No more of this, well, actually, fact-checking that didn't work in Trump 1.0. Follow up his mailers with another mailer superimposing his, saying lies. Follow up his ads that go on YouTube that my kids were able to recite word for word a couple years ago and then encourage them to then tell me to run for Congress because they heard me debunking them over and over. Put them up, lies, 5 seconds, lies. We can do that, and we can win.
Mike Lawler is a liar, a snake, and a chameleon. And for the last 10 years, the Democrats have been playing defense and it is time for us to play offense. And the only way we can do that is with somebody who has been in the communities, understands the communities, and has no political ties, is not beholden to anyone, anywhere, and will only work for the voters of New York 17. I will be everywhere. I will be in every corner of every community. Team Reinmann already has over 25 Rhine turns, as they like to call them. And we are hitting it hard with social media. We will make ads that Mike's kids will remember. We will make ads that you will remember. Social media is the way to get the 18 to 25-year-olds to vote in the primary. We need to get everybody out, not just the people here, not just the people at every forum that I've been to, not just the people at every meet and greet that I've been to. We need 18-year-olds and 40-year-olds and 55-year-olds, and we need to appeal to every single one of them, and we need to make sure that Mike Lawler is not appealing to them, and we do that by calling him out on his lies. We know the lies, but they don't know the lies. We know the salt tax cap means absolutely nothing because it goes back down to $10,000. We know Medicaid cuts don't start until after his next election. We know that he has voted every single time against a woman's right to choose. We know this, and we need to communicate it in a way that people remember. I've seen many of you. I will continue to see many of you. I will be everywhere. I look forward to seeing you soon.
CD 17 was ours to lose twice. It was ours to lose twice because our party hasn't done the work of being on the ground, listening to constituents, and shaping policy from that. I like Mondaire Jones very much. The criticism I hear on the street is that he was rarely in the district. Mike Lawler is here constantly. He is everywhere. Same with Maloney, that he was spending too much time in DC, that he was not on the ground, and he was not taking care of people. And this is after Nita Lowey did an extraordinary job for decades. It was ours to lose because we don't have a ground game, or we haven't had a ground game. And I want to use an illustration of my own campaigning as a trustee, because there are actual structural barriers within the Democratic Party and how we get out the vote that leave people out. 25% of people, voters in Tarrytown, Hispanic. It was key to me to reach out to the Hispanic vote. It's part of my heritage. When I went to the party and asked for a list, and when I put together 20 native Spanish speakers to knock on doors, there was no list. And it's because these voters were never cultivated because they were perceived not to vote. We have to do the work of being on the ground, talking to people who typically don't turn out. These are the people who can help us win. But we're only going to get their votes if we're present, if we listen, if our policies reflect the needs that they share with us. And this is something that the Democratic Party has failed consistently to do, and it's a key reason why I ran. It is too important. We can't make that mistake again.
Along with the Will Rogers line about the Democratic Party being not an organized party, which I've always loved, I'd also say we're the party of flowery platforms, mission statements, 10-point plans. Voters want to hear a 2-point plan. Kick ass, take names. That's it. And that starts with Mike Lawler, who, every time one of us got into the race, it was pretty much the same canned line. Radical leftist, radical leftist. A, it's tired. He's the one with the tired playbook. B, he is the one that is the most radical right-wing member of Congress we've ever had. And it will be our job to remind voters of that every single day. And then secondly, I would say we have to be a party of ideas again. So let's talk about what we're for. Let's talk about how we crack down on predatory private equity that's buying up all our housing stock so that there's not enough affordable housing for renters. Let's talk about how we really clean up our clean water, our water with innovation that doesn't just pass on higher rate costs to ratepayers. Let's talk about how we finally address our caregiving crisis. Again, with technology, innovation, training for unpaid caregivers so that they have an easier time making their families run and making ends meet. We need to be the party of ideas again to talk about what we're for. That's what will get people excited. That's what will get people out to the polls. That's why I'm running for Congress. Thanks.
So there's a saying in the Army that they teach you as a young Army officer. The fastest way to lose the current war is to fight the last one. And I believe that's what the Democratic Party has done over and over again over the last decade, and honestly over the last 2 cycles right here in CD 17. The reality is, coming out of redistricting, New York 17 is no longer a district that a Democrat can win with Democratic votes alone. Take all the emotion out of it, folks. Take it. Because the reality is we don't get to fix this system if we don't govern. We don't get to govern if we don't win. And so we've got to figure out the answer to the most important question here, which is how do we win? And that path to winning has to go beyond just our party. We need to offer up the voters of CD 17 a person they will choose over party, someone who will inspire country over party. That is how we win. And to take a page out of a former CD 17 resident, Michael Lewis, great book and movie, Moneyball. It's about the singles and doubles, not the grand slams. It's about putting every corner of CD 17 in play. It's about driving up turnout and getting people again inspired about the future, what we are fighting for, not just against. Yeah, Mike Lawler is a terrible human, but you know what? The overwhelming majority of this district voted for him. How do we get them back? And that is offering them better, fighting for something, not just against. And that is what I am focused on, doing the hard work in every single corner of this district, to include right here in Putnam and Dutchess. We can win this together by showing people that it's not just talk. Mike Lawler has beat 2 seasoned Democratic politicians. He's never beat someone like me. This is about getting out there, doing the work, and bringing this community along the way, because everyone, regardless of how they register, deserves better than him.
I think Mike Lawler has won in the past without having to run against his record. That's obviously not going to happen this year. Totally different scenario. I agree the key is to get way beyond just Democratic Party. We need unaffiliated voters. There are more and more of those. There are more and more younger people who are no longer true Democrats because they've given up on the entire system. One of the reasons that's happening is nobody trusts Congress anymore. Nobody trusts government anymore. I would pledge going in that I would remind people we have to completely rebuild our government. And I would pledge going in that that starts by remaking Congress. No more trading of stocks for congressmen. No more getting rich while you're in office. We have to have a binding code of ethics for the Supreme Court as well. We need to take back this country by putting good people in office. That's the message that everyone can relate to, whether you're a Democrat, well, not Republican. Not Republican, but Democrat and unaffiliated can relate to that message. I also want to talk about Lawler's strategy in the past. He somehow brought together groups of people that don't normally vote together. The Hasidic community, the Orthodox community, retired cops and firefighters usually don't all have the same interests. I'm actually the only candidate that has directly dealt with the Hasidic community. As many of you may know, they tried to put a yeshiva in Briarcliff. We settled. There was a federal lawsuit. We settled. They came out of that. They will say Peter Chatzky was fair, smart, creative. He worked with us. We made money off the deal. It didn't cost Briarcliff anything, by the way. Total win solution. I know these groups. I have inroads to these groups. The key is picking away at the majorities that Mike Lawler has gotten in the past without doing much work at all. Boots on the ground, spreading out your organization, hitting everybody you can. That's how we win.
Okay, these were all questions that were submitted to the candidates beforehand. Now we're going to ask questions directly from you that we've received by email and also that you've given us in your cards that we have here right now. The next question, the first question from the audience is, we know that the Big Ugly Bill will take away health care from many people of this district, and it will make health care less affordable and accessible for a lot more of us. Optum has a monopoly on local physicians, and people already don't have great access and affordability. What will you do in Congress to improve health care affordability and access?
First of all, Optum is a great example. Optum controls in many areas throughout Westchester for sure, and I think in parts here as well in Dutchess. Optum controls all the network of doctors, of pharmaceuticals. They provide medication to their own network. They own a monopoly on the processing of the claims. It's unbelievable. That should be broken up. That is an unfair monopoly that people are suffering real costs there. I've actually forgotten what the question was here, other than that. What will we do to improve access and affordability for healthcare? Everyone's going to be asking for it. Thanks. I believe in universal health care also. I think, let's go back to what I said about Congress and not getting rich. I don't think Congress should have a better health care plan than the least wealthy person in America. And I think then we'll start to see real change. It's ridiculous in a country of how great America once was that we're not providing for all residents. And that includes universal health care. It includes improved child care. It includes improved elder care. We can't, if you want people to work and you want them to prosper, you have to develop that social safety net so people can get to work and don't have to stay home to make all their other ends meet. Thank you.
So we talked a lot about beating Mike Lawler and why that matters, but the second question that matters is who is the best person to get in Congress on day one and be able to do the job and deliver, right? Not just talk, but deliver. And this is where, going back to how do we push back on what's happening, the attack on our healthcare system for especially the people who are most vulnerable, need it most. On day one, when you get back there in January 2027, I'm going to fight like hell to undo the one big beautiful bill that is really just an attack on the American working class and the right to have access to healthcare that is affordable. The other thing that we must fight back on is, let's be real, the war that's going on against women and their access to basic healthcare. Whether it's denying the funding of Planned Parenthood through federal funds, which is outrageous, the Supreme Court that dared to rule in Medina versus South Carolina, saying that states could choose to not actually reimburse Planned Parenthood and other clinics, even if the services were basic health care and had nothing to do with abortion. There is a war on women's health care right now. They want to fight, we'll give them a fight. And I promise you, they're going to be living hurting, because what is happening to women across this country is not okay. Look at what Planned Parenthood here in Hudson-Peconic does. You're talking about last year alone in the 11 brick and mortar clinics and the 2 mobile clinics, over 93,000 tests, assessments, and precancer screenings. That's the stuff they're attacking. That's wrong. Do you have a mother, a daughter, a sister? How can you not feel compelled to fight? And that is what Congress should be doing right now. That is what Mike Lawler should be doing for this district. And instead, he has put his own political ambition ahead of the people. And for that, he deserves to be held accountable. Thank you.
So this issue of healthcare is really personal to me. When I was in my 20s, a young working woman, the only annual care I was guaranteed under my health plan at the time was my annual gynecological screening. So it wasn't until I was in my early 30s and was having like some neck problems and had an MRI that my very invasive thyroid cancer was discovered, which had been probably growing, they estimated, for 4 to 5 years. I had to have 92 lymph nodes dissected along with my thyroid removed and months of physical therapy. And I'm great now because I have great health care and, I've fought it twice successfully, but it's very real. And I know that fighting, I know what it's like to fight with your insurance company. Like, it's a second full-time job. It's painful, it's time consuming, and something that people still deal with every single day. And so I think it's time to look at a public option for Medicare and make, as Peter said, the care that's available to members of Congress available to everyone. And I also want to take the focus off just rural hospitals, although I know that those are, at risk with the bad, brutal bill. It's all of our hospitals. These cuts that are coming are going to mean job losses. It's going to mean the Medicaid requirements, the job requirements are going to compound that childcare crisis worse than we've seen. The rolling effects of the Medicaid cuts and the bad, brutal bill are going to ripple across our entire economy. And that's why I agree with everyone else at this table that the first thing we have to do is restore those cuts and roll back that bill. Thank you.
I think we all have experienced how challenging it is to have the health insurance system that we have right now and how much more expensive it is becoming. It's something that I'm watching my mother go through. She's 87 and pays hundreds and hundreds of dollars a month for her medications, even though she has Medicare and other coverage. It is appalling, and to have this big, ugly bill cut Medicaid the way it has, I know all of my colleagues here on the table have said similar, but the lack of that tax revenue going to our hospitals and our clinics is going to cause clinics to close across the state. It'll create more healthcare deserts. It'll be catastrophic. So I believe firmly that we need Medicare as a public option. It's part of the suburban progress agenda that I'm putting forward. And that means a guaranteed option for everyone to enroll in Medicare if they choose. If you like your insurance and it works for you, that's fine. And so this way everyone has an option, to keep their insurance, their private insurance if they choose to. And the eligibility is any U.S. resident can enroll in a Medicare-based public plan, regardless of age, income, or employment status. There's an automatic enrollment that we're proposing. Anyone who is currently uninsured would be automatically enrolled with premiums subsidized on a sliding scale. Opting out is only an option if you have an alternative of other sources. The benefits, we need to cover everything. We need to cover vision, dental, mental health, and especially reproductive care, given the situation that we're in with reproductive rights in this country right now. No deductibles, free preventative care, and we're going to pay for it by rolling back the big, ugly bill, which will save $3.3 trillion over 10 years. If they can give this much money to the ultra-wealthy, we can take care of our own.
Healthcare is a basic human right. In my time at 914 Cares, I worked with healthcare companies all across the Hudson Valley. I worked with Westchester Community Health Center. I worked with Open Door. I worked with Sun River. And I know that the cuts to Medicaid don't only affect hospitals, but they affect our everyday healthcare for everyday people. And these organizations have already started to feel the heat. Last month, Westchester Community Health Center had to lay off 68 people. These are not rich people. When they get laid off, do you know what happens? They have to go on social service programs. When social service programs are cut and they can't go on it, they too become people who are in need. So we need to The first thing we need to do on January 2nd of 2027 is amend the budget. I will not call it what he wants us to call it. Every single year, Congress needs to pass a budget. Every single year, the state of New York needs to pass a budget. We can amend any bill, and that should be any of us, whoever wins. Our first priority is to amend the bill to restore the Affordable Care Act back to where it should be, to restore Medicaid and Medicare back to where it should be. I also want to bring up prescription drugs. I will work diligently with Pat Ryan, Congressman Pat Ryan in New York 18. He has an amazing bill that he's put forth twice now to try and get prescription drug costs down, and I will work with him diligently to get that passed in Congress. I also want to echo what everyone else has said. Healthcare is just not physical healthcare. It's mental health, it's dental health, it's abortion health. It's healthcare for the whole person. We need to continue to fight to make sure that our entire person is taken care of.
I want to zoom out for 2 minutes. 2 minutes, right? We still have 2 minutes? 2 minutes? 158, all right. Let's zoom out for 155 then. 120th Congress, most likely it will only be us in the House as Democrats and Democrats, both big D and small d, in control. Probably won't have the Senate, won't have the White House. So how are we going to use the House as the people's PR firm? Who are you going to have in the House as the person with the loudest mouth, the hair on brightest fire, and the most passion to send a message to the American public that this is what we can have when we can have nice things, and who is stopping us from having it? So we have oversight, and this is about healthcare. I promise this is about healthcare. It's about everything. We have oversight, where we bring in the bad guys, bring in the people who are stopping us from having the nice things, people who have ripped away our rights and freedoms, whether it's healthcare, for stopping us from having a public option, or executives who are getting themselves rich at our expense. And you point out the corrupt and the criminals on one side. And then we have our own one big beautiful bill. Rights restoration, reproductive rights, healthcare strengthening, universal healthcare, voting rights restoration and strengthening, workers' protection, immigration reform, all of it. And we send that over to the Senate because what people don't recognize or they forget is that progressive policies are popular and they are repealed at the electoral peril of their political opponents. Think Social Security, think Medicare, Medicaid, Fair Housing Act, Voting Rights Act, Civil Rights Act, Obamacare. We need to remember that when we have the power as people and we move forward with things that we stand for, people like them and Republicans kill them in the cradle so that never happens, it never takes root, or they have the Supreme Court do their dirty work and strike them down by making stuff up. So we need to have people in the House who understand this dynamic of the Republican-bought system that's preventing us from achieving all the stuff that we all want. Who has that vision? Who can go into the House and use that 120th Congress to tell the people, educate the people, inspire the people that this is what we can have when we get a president on our side, we get the Senate on our side, and we get the Supreme Court on our side. That's the project that we have ahead of us. That's the challenge we have, and that's the challenge I want to face head on.
I mean, I said it at the last forum. It's kind of like ditto. But I do think that it's important here to think about this a little bit differently. I was actually talking with someone recently who was out canvassing, and they knocked on the door of someone who was older, a senior citizen, who said, "Oh, you're Democrats, you're a bunch of socialists. I hate social programs." And they said, "So Social Security, Medicare," and went through the list, and the person didn't really have a good answer. But I think, to Mike's point, it is the PR. It is talking about how these programs are so imperative and kind of taking that like negative tinge off of them. As other candidates on the stage have mentioned, I come at this from a very personal perspective. At 30, I was over in Africa working for the FBI and got diagnosed with cancer. And then I went overseas for the FBI. I'm seeing a trend into Israel as an Irish guy and came back with skin cancer. The fights for healthcare coverage were not necessarily as extreme as they could be for others because I was lucky enough to have good health care, but the papers kept coming and the back and forth always happened. I've had members of my family on Medicaid and Medicaid disability. I've seen what that paperwork looks like. That is a full-time job. So we need to do everything that's been mentioned up here. We need to make healthcare obviously more accessible, more affordable. We need to make it easier. We need to make the process to qualify to receive your health care, to get your treatments. It shouldn't be a decision about whether or not you're feeding your kids that night or paying the medical bill. And it should also be an understanding that when you get that brochure of benefits, those are the real benefits. That's what you get. It doesn't have to be a Herculean effort. So I agree with all of my colleagues on the stage. We will get in there on day one. We will fight. But I'll be bringing from it a different perspective of having been on the other side of it. It won't be theoretical anymore. It will be more about how do we make it better for folks, because I know what it's like when you're on the receiving end of the healthcare industry. It is not fun and it is not acceptable. That is why the oversight is going to be so important, like I mentioned in my first answer.
We have a question from the audience, and this one I'm going to take a little personal privilege, and it has to deal with immigration. I may not look like a refugee, but my parents were. They were both born in Ukraine, and they were victims of the last war. There's another war now, as you probably know. The question from somebody in the audience is, how would you deal with the immigration issue?
The immigration system is completely broken. We need to recognize that there was an opportunity in the last Congress to actually pass a comprehensive bipartisan immigration plan where the Democrats did not get nearly as much as they wanted, but it actually put us in the right step moving forward. And instead of running on a solution, Donald Trump chose to run on a problem, and Mike Lawler chose to run on that problem right along with him. The demonization of immigrants in our community is an absolute and utter travesty. It should not be happening. The fabric of this country is made up of immigrants. We are the melting pot of the world. Coming at this from a law enforcement perspective, having worked cases related to the southern border, there is a way in which you can tackle this problem head on while still making sure there is a pathway for immigration. It just comes together and having a bipartisan solution. We're not going to get immigration reform done without it. But it's going into Congress and having those conversations with folks. I'm one of the candidates, I don't have it on me right now, but I carry around red cards every time I go to meet and greets and talk with folks. Because if they feel unsafe, they need to know the opportunities and the access that's available to them. But we need to be talking about this issue not as immigrants and criminals. That is where this party gets it wrong. The and everything after it stops. We talk about immigrants. We talk about people who are coming to this country for a better life, and we can have a conversation about criminal justice and criminal justice reform, but that has nothing to do with immigration. The large majority, all of the immigrants who come here are seeking a better life. We cannot be tying it to criminality, because that is where this party and the Republican Party get it wrong, because immediately the American people will then accept an archetype that the Republican Party has created. We need to talk about it fairly, and we need to make sure that we're using the right language, and the C word has nowhere involved in it.
I think a lot of us on the stage can also claim that we had family that came over as refugees, as immigrants, seeking a better life and seeking shelter from a storm from where they came. I know I can speak that way. So, one thing that we also should recognize is that Donald Trump has overstepped, that he is underwater right now on immigration, that people do not like his crackdowns, his masked fascists going door to door and stealing away our neighbors without due process, a fundamental right we fought a revolution over, and spiriting them away to third countries they've never lived in, while we have a Supreme Court that says, fine, that's okay. Or we have immigrant communities all across this district, Haitian communities in Rockland, who've had their temporary protected status revoked arbitrarily, while Mike Lawler weakly and meekly pipes up on their behalf, hoping that perhaps they'll still vote for him when he has left them out to dry because he's supported this man on every other thing that he's done. My day job, which has become my after kids go to bedtime job, is reading court opinions all day, every day, well, all night, on the immigration system and people who are coming with their stories and they cannot get granted asylum, they are turned away because of a broken system. The broken system is built on another broken system, which is not just the comprehensive reform that was put forward. Trump said kill it to get him elected, but also back in 2013, we had everyone ready to go, and the Senate filibustered it because that serves no one's interest but Republicans. So we need to have an overhaul not only of the immigration system, but of the system that prevents an overhaul of the immigration system. It's the only way forward, and we can get there, especially because Trump has overstepped and the public is ready to do something about it.
We are a nation of immigrants, and we need to create a path to citizenship for the people who are here. For the last decade, I have worked in immigrant communities every single day, day in and day out. Trump 2016, I was called into Ossining to work with their school district on how we were going to make sure that if undocumented people were scared to leave their homes, they would still get the basic essentials that they need. 2020, I was called in by every single school district to make sure that all of the children were receiving books and school supplies and anything that they needed in order to get through the pandemic. 2024, I knew I was running for Congress, but no one else did. And the day after Trump was elected and he signed all of those horrific executive orders, I was on the phone with the superintendents of Peekskill and Ossining and Tarrytown schools, making sure that the students that came into 914 Cares every Tuesday to get read to and to read books with our volunteers would still be able to do it safely and securely. We need a path to citizenship. The Democratic Party has failed our immigrant system. We have failed because we have not put together a platform that can create a path to citizenship, where immigrants can work confidently and safely and add to our community without fear of repercussion. And let's just chat quickly about due process. Every person in the United States is guaranteed due process by our Constitution. What Trump and Lawler are doing by stealing their due process is not only unethical and disgusting, it's unconstitutional.
Like for many of us, I'm sure that this is a personal issue for me. My family's from El Salvador. During the Civil War in the 80s, quite a few of my family members had to leave the country or be killed, and a few were killed. So this is a very, I think the thing that was amazing, though, at that point, that's so different about now, is that Ronald Reagan granted amnesty. He granted amnesty to people fleeing this horror. George Bush spoke about it with such compassion. And these relatives of mine, and like so many others, are thriving business owners, strong members of the community. And this should come as no surprise to anyone, because this is how our nation was built. All of us here have that same kind of history. So it's absolutely devastating that we are where we are now. The degree to which people are being vilified and treated as criminals is completely unacceptable. It is absolutely appalling. Within 2 weeks, there were 2 raids in Tarrytown, one around the corner from my house, taking my neighbors. It is beyond unacceptable, and all done, as my peers have said, we had a bipartisan bill. Trump blew it up because he needed villains to attack. So I will be very briefly, this is a core issue for me, and I will say that we need to have a path to citizenship. We need to have that opportunity. I'm arguing for and will fight for guaranteed green cards after 10 years, because if you've worked here, paid taxes, and built a life here, you belong here. Full citizenship for dreamers, that should be a no-brainer. Anything other is appalling. And ending cruelty at the border, particularly, I will say, the private prison system. Talk to me about it after.
So like most at this, if not all at this table, our family too has its own immigration story. Ukraine on my husband's side, fleeing the pogroms, Jews fleeing the pogroms, and on my side, Norway to escape economic turmoil for a better life here in the States. And I'll say that we've talked a lot about the PR war that Donald Trump and the Republicans engage in. And again, having knocked 4,000 doors for my own county legislative seat and then numerous ones in 2024, they largely won that war by putting a face, as John said, that equated with crime and other negative aspects that Americans just didn't want to deal with or think about. But we saw the real faces, two very real faces of this crisis and this cruel immigration policy that Donald Trump has wrought on us in two young people, one from Rockland and one from Westchester, both abiding by the law, here legally, showing up to do their check-ins, and snatched by ICE right there. And that brings it home for people who is really here, who is really impacted by this, by the revocation of temporary protected status for our Haitian community, our vibrant Haitian community in Rockland, and for Dreamers and other young people and people of all ages who are here legally. We do need a path to citizenship for Dreamers. We do need a modernized, streamlined immigration system that respects the borders, but also respects human dignity. And let's be real, the cost of this crisis is being felt in our economic sectors. We have in Haverstraw bakeries once bustling that are empty because people aren't buying big cakes. People aren't having big parties in Latino communities because they're afraid. We have places like Nyack Center where parents are not coming in to sign up their kids for the most affordable after-school and before-school care in our county because they are afraid. We have to be there for our neighbors, and we have to pass comprehensive immigration reform. As said, I would have voted for that last cycle as well, last Congress as well. Thank you.
I did not go to combat time and time again and put my life on the line for this country to watch America become a place that disappears its citizens off the streets. Period. There is nothing more disrespectful to America's sons and daughters who've made the ultimate sacrifice for this nation, for America, for the values that it represents, than to watch what is happening. This is not who we are. This is not who we can let America become. I've been to those countries where people disappeared their own people off the streets. That is not America. It's not. And we can't let it become that. But this goes back to the work that needs to be done and the failures of Congress and why this matters. The immigration system is broken. We have not invested in the agency responsible for Customs and Immigration Services in the Department of Homeland Security since we literally built the Department of Homeland Security after 9/11 over 20 years ago. We have to invest in the systems to make the immigration system and process humane and timely. It should not take people a decade to become citizens. These are all things that are fixable, ladies and gentlemen. They are. But Congress chooses to not fund this agency, instead makes it rely on being fee-based, which means collecting money off of passports and immigration fees. This is not a viable way. I will tell you, we do need to invest in our border security. That is a core element of national security. And I've seen firsthand as terror groups and human traffickers and drug cartels have tried to use our porous border to bring in drugs, to bring in minors for sex trafficking rings, to try to get in this country and attack Americans. We do have to invest in our border security, but we have to invest in our immigration process to make it humane and allow America to continue to be the incredible force it is because we are a nation of immigrants. But we must stay true to our values and never, never forget who we are.
So just in case anybody missed this in the news, let's go back to the Scarsdale kid story, which was, a week ago? 19-year-old going to a visa hearing, kidnapped by ICE. It's ridiculous. More ridiculous is Mike Lawler then takes credit for releasing the kid with no accountability that he passed the bill that caused all this to happen in the first place. That's the government we're living with today. In Peekskill, ICE kidnapped a mother and daughter because they were going for the husband and father who had an outstanding criminal warrant. The father figured it out. When they called him, he said, yeah, keep my wife, keep my kid. And what did ICE do? They released them immediately because their strategy failed. And it's hard to pick a single policy of the Trump administration that is as disgusting, despicable, fucked up, I'm sorry, I can't get another word out, as what is going on with ICE today. It is incredible. We have invested in immigration, but we put $75 billion into ICE to build prison camps and to recruit untrained officers. They get $40,000 sign-on bonuses for joining ICE because there's a morale problem. Shocking. It is, I have been a police commissioner for 9 years in Briarcliff. It's part of my job. I know police officers well. ICE is the only unlawful, unaccredited, untrained, unidentifiable police organization in the country. It is just disgusting. It needs to be eliminated right away. We do need to take that $75 billion and put it in reforming immigration policies and building a path to citizenship. There's no question about it.
Okay, I'm going to try to, we have two last questions that come from the audience that we do want to have time for closing statements, and we do want to be done by the turn of the 8 o'clock hour. So I'm going to ask each of the candidates to limit your answer to these next two questions to 1 minute instead of 2 minutes. The first question comes from the audience is, are you going to take corporate PAC money? Peter, you are the first.
I think I've made it clear. I've put in my own money to launch my campaign because I didn't want to be accused of having any kind of conflicts of interest. So no. I mean, is the question, will I take PAC money?
Yes.
Yeah, no.
No, I believe we have a real significant fight ahead of us, but there is no way in hell I'm ever going to sell out my values or who I am or who I'm fighting for any amount of money.
No, and I'm proud to have support of many, over 30,000 donors with a donation of less than $75, and I think it's important to be true to the people I serve and not corporate self-interest. Thank you.
No, I will not.
Ditto?
No, I will not take any corporate PAC money.
This campaign has been fueled by small dollar donations, and I'm not going to be taking corporate PAC money.
Well, that was very quick. So I can give you a little bit more time. Let's go for the full 2 minutes for what's, I think, a human question. And I'd like to be back, have you back, invite you back here in a year so I can hear a follow-up answer to the same question. And John, starting with you, I want you to tell us, what's the most difficult part of running for Congress?
Where to start? I have to say that running for Congress, I'm sure my colleagues will agree, is exhausting yet invigorating all at the same time. So it's a very weird sort of juxtaposition that you come to events like this and you get really energized by just having folks care about the issues. I have to say, though, that there's just not enough time in the day. And it's been really difficult, I think, between managing paying for the bills and seeing my son off to camp and picking him up. And it's just today he had a stomach ache and wanted to come home early. And suddenly it was like, well, I have a forum to get to. So how are we going to juggle this? And call the husband, call the in-laws. It takes a community in a lot of ways to run for Congress. When I was recently at an event, I thanked my husband specifically because if it wasn't for the support of our families, it would not be possible. I think that all the other stuff you expect to come with running for Congress comes and you see it, whether it's the hate or the negative posts or all that kind of stuff. But I think the hardest thing is the balance. I think the best thing is being able to be in rooms like this and talk about finding solutions. We just don't get enough of that anymore. The news is doom and gloom. The breaking news is another tweet or a social, whatever they're called, that is just absolutely abhorrent. And getting in a space like this and talking about ideas and talking about how we can make our community and our country better is what has inspired the last 17 years of my life. And so I worked a lot of long hours in the FBI, but I think that the hours and the time that it takes to run for Congress and to do it well is something that's hard to balance, but also the thing that really motivates me to keep going every day. Thanks.
Perfect answer. Before I had my first child, and maybe many of you before, if you're parents, before you had your first child, people would ask, are you ready? And my stock answer was, well, I'm ready not to be ready, because you don't know what you're getting into, even if people tell you what you're getting into. Now, people will say it's going to take up every hour, every day. It'll be the hardest thing you've ever done in your life. You're going to have to be everywhere all at once, all at the same time, while also calling people for money all day too. And it's going to be exhausting. It's going to be tiring. It's going to be hard. And they were all right. They were all right. The same way parenting is all of those things, but it's also a joy, because it's rewarding to get before everyone, wherever we go, to get to know people, hear their concerns, to have them get to know us and what we're fighting for. You know, I can't speak for everyone at this table, but I'm kind of a pure extrovert, and running for office is like a pure extrovert's paradise. Because as opposed to when I was a journalist and people would see my putting a microphone in front of their face and thought, oh, this is someone who is going to ask me tough questions and I need to run away. When I come and talk to someone now, they want to tell me everything. And I want to hear everything. I want to help them. I want to help fix things. Why I'm running, it's I'm sure why everyone else here is running. But the hardest thing, as John said, is there's not enough hours in the day. And we can't change that unless maybe we fix daylight savings time. I think I'm going to vote for that bill. And making sure that I remain a present parent for my children, that's paramount importance. So that if there's ever a time where you want to see me and I say no, it's not because I don't want to. It's because I've carved out that time to be a dad. That's super important, and I'm not going to let that one go.
So this answer is very personal for me. I have 2 children, Molly and Zach, and they're amazing, and I gave birth to them. But I have another child, and it's called 914 Cares. And honestly, my daughter left for college 3 years ago, but the hardest day of my life was April 1st, 2025, when I had to resign my position as CEO of 914 Cares. I have had to leave my mission of helping communities in need, families who need me, and I've had to give that over to another person to live that mission so that I could be here with you. Every day that I wake up and I don't go to 914 Cares, my heart breaks a little bit. The first time I went into our space, our caring collective, after I resigned, I had to leave. It was way too hard to be there. I miss my daughter every day when she's in college, but I hear from her and she talks to me and I know she's doing well. But the need for me to stay as removed as possible from 914 Cares so that Mike Lawler doesn't come after 914 Cares and try and strip away our 501c3 status has been the hardest thing for me personally. I want to say one other thing that I think is truly difficult, and I think everybody on stage will agree with me. When you're running for Congress, you can never wake up and say, I'm not going to read the news today. You can never wake up and say, I'm going to be on vacation. Every single day, you have to hear every horrific thing that the Trump administration is doing, and you can't turn it off. And I do miss the days of being able to say, I'm not looking at my phone, I'm not going on Instagram or Facebook, I'm not going to know what horrible things he's done today.
So when Trump was elected a second time, that is exactly how I felt. When he was elected the second time, I was already a local elected official. We knew how bad it was the first time around and that it would be so much worse this time around. And so I went to friends that are local Hispanic activists, and I said, I have the privilege of being an elected official. What can we do to mitigate the damage that's coming our way? Like, what can I do as a person in office? And their answer sort of shocked me. They said, you should run for Congress. And I said, hang on, that isn't what I thought we were going to be talking about. And I took it in, I talked to my family, waited a while, looked at the field, and decided it was essential because it's critical to represent perspectives that I think have not been represented by the Democratic Party, specifically marginalized communities, people who don't typically vote, people who have given up. These are the coalitions that we have to build and help people understand that we actually do have the power to flex, that there are enough of us, enough Democrats here, that Lawler should be losing so easily. This, I would say, is the hardest thing. It requires being on the ground, it requires being everywhere, and there really, as my colleagues here have said, there isn't enough time in the day. It takes you away from your kids. I have 2 children. But I know this, they told me that I should do this too, even though I said to them, oh dear, I have to be quiet. Go ahead, okay, good. You know.
Give her a minute.
Come on.
Give her a minute.
I dedicate
Thank you. It's important to model to them that we can make a difference even though we're facing something as existential as what we're facing now. And the hope in their eyes are what drives me through how difficult this process is. But also everybody here too, because I know together we're gonna get that guy and we're gonna take our house back. Thank you for the extra time.
So I've worked for dozens of candidates over the years, worked on lots of campaigns, run 2 campaigns of my own, and this still is the hardest thing I've ever done. And I think everyone up here would agree with that. But what gets me up every day to do that hard work is the memory of 2016, like so many here also. A few weeks before the election, an old campaign friend had sent me a box, and I opened it, and it was pink tissue paper, and inside were some firecrackers with a note that said, for setting off when we have our first woman president. And so, you know, as the results were coming in, faces were getting long, including my daughter's, but she was 10 years old at the time and just, you know, staring at the television. And I said, I promise, when they call the results, I will wake you up 1, 2, 4 a.m., whatever it is, and we will go out and we will light those firecrackers. You know, as the rest of you, I doom scrolled all night, woke up the next morning, saw the results, pulled myself together, went down to make her breakfast, and then pitter patter down the steps, and there she was, and she said, "You never woke me up." And that was a real punch in the gut for me, that all my years of working and fighting to elect Democrats and women candidates, and where are we today? I'm sending her off to college in the fall with fewer rights than I had at her age. And that is devastating to me. But it's also motivating. We are going to get her rights back. We are going to give children in the Hudson Valley a better future than we had. That is our right. That is our responsibility. That is what wakes me up every day. I still believe in my heart that government is here to do good things for people and make a difference in their lives. That's why all of us are up here. I'm proud to share this table with all of you, and we will beat Mike Lawler and take our country back and put Congress back to work for the people. Thank you.
The hardest part of this, hands down, without any reservation, is not being able to do more to fix the pain you hear in voters across this district and what they're going through. This job is about going out there and hearing from people where they need help. And the number of stories I hear every day, whether it's people who are literally making trade-offs between buying groceries or buying prescriptions. Whether it's families who saved their entire lives to put their kids through college, and now their kids are living back at home and can't find a job, and that family's $100,000 in debt. Whether it's folks who deserve to spend their senior years living with dignity and honor, who are scared that they're not going to be able to pay the bills in the house they've been in for the last 45 years because their Social Security and other benefits are going to get cut. It is truly hearing these stories every single day. And where I come from in my world, we're not about talk, we're about action. We're about doing things. And there is nothing in this world I can do to make November 2026 come here any sooner. And it sucks every single day. And so to Jess's point about, wanting to do more to fix this, wanting to actually take action and make lives better, the hardest part of this is not being able to do more today to fix their pain. But I will say that is what reinforces the fire every single morning to get up and make sure we kick Mike Lawler's ass. So let's go.
I have no doubt the worst part of this entire venture is the time. It's brutal. There isn't enough hours in a day, and it's relentless, in part because some of you started to run way too early. All is forgiven. I get it. It's fine. There's tremendous sacrifice. I've never had so many events planned for me. I hired somebody to keep track of my schedule. Never had to do that before. Maybe the worst part is my schedule is filled with having coffee with people, which just means I'm up all night long. There's no good answer to this. My wife and I are on two completely different schedules. It's not great. I don't remember the last time I saw friends. It's a sacrifice to run. On the plus side, I do love meeting all the people I'm meeting. And I do feel that I'm doing good even now because I just hear how desperate, how despondent, how upset people are. And, I studied psych way back in college. I now can apply some of that psychology training. If you talk to people and give them some optimism and some hope, and you start getting them to realize that this is just temporary, it's a blip in the overall, I hope, life of America, that's doing a job right now, and I love that part of it. So maybe the lost hours of sleep, the relentless campaigning, the relentless meeting people is worthwhile if you're leaving them feeling a little better about themselves.
I just want to say that those were great answers, every single one of them. And that was a great question. I don't want to embarrass anybody. Who asked this question?
I did.
What's that? Who asked this question? The last one that we had. Stand up for a second. That was an excellent question. I think we got a real view into each one of your souls. And you know what? I'm going to take a point of as the moderator, I get to ask the questions. I know we're supposed to have closing statements. I think you just had your closing statement. And I want to tell you, the personal, what a great question. The personal aspect of each one of your struggles to attain this position where you're going to be able to help all of us. I want to applaud all of you, and I want to take everybody to applaud these great candidates.
You guys make us proud to be Democrats. Thank you, all of you, so much. Thank you, Vic, for moderating a great conversation. I just want to quickly acknowledge the team that put this together. Brett on camera, Bill making magic with the sound. Jenna, Kathy, Janice, Kathy, Marcia, Nick, Karen, Margaret. Thank you all for doing your part tonight. So, two more things. One, share this video, because this was a phenomenal conversation. So when you talk to people, they want to understand who to vote for, share this. We're going to share the whole video. We also may share some excerpts because we know people have short attention spans, but you will see more of this. But please share this information. We're going to get all the questions to the candidates because I think there's a lot of great questions we didn't get to ask. But I also want to make a quick plug for the fact that we have 2025 local elections. Many of you raised that. Oh my God, with the hats. I love it. This is so good. We're going to get a picture. Don't go anywhere. We're going to get a picture. But we have a lot of candidates here. We have 3 candidates running in Kent. We have 2 of our legislative candidates and a couple, or 2 of our Carmel candidates. So meet them. Let's do the work now, because electing Democrats this year is going to make it that much easier for us to elect Democrats next year. So thank you all for being here.